You're listening to a production of the National Media Archive. To learn more or volunteer, go to nationalmediaarchive.com.
Imagine standing at a crossroads, one path shimmering with light, the other cloaked in shadow. Isn't this the fundamental human experience grappling with choices of good and evil? Throughout history, God has symbolized truth, beauty, and salvation, while the devil embodies deception, betrayal, and damnation. But here's the twist. The reality of evil isn't just out there, it's within us. Why are we so fascinated, even haunted by the darkness? Could it be that evil isn't an external monster, but a shadow lurking in our own souls? Temptation, that's the technical term for the devil's everyday work. Yet, how often do we oversimplify, pointing fingers at evildoers as if we're immune? When we do that, we project our own darkness onto others. Psychologically, this is called shadow projection, and it's as old as humanity itself. Now you might be thinking, I'd never fall for evil, but let me tell you a story. Even the most righteous among us are only one step away from the abyss if we deny our capacity for darkness. The devil, after all, is said to have a will beyond our own, operating like a rogue program in the psyche-autonomous, persistent, and seductive. So next time you're tempted to call someone else evil, remember, 3 fingers point back at you. Our journey today is about facing that uncomfortable truth and learning why true morality means knowing evil exists and choosing not to serve it. Ready to walk the tightrope between angels and demons? Buckle up. We're about to dive into the mythic and psychological roots of our greatest inner battle. Let's journey back to ancient Greece, where demons weren't always monstrous. The Greeks spoke of daemon spiritual beings who could be guardians or adversaries. Agathodaimon, the good spirit, was like your cosmic coach, while Kakodaimon, the evil daimon, whispered chaos. Eudaimonia, or good spirit, is a term Aristotle used for human flourishing a state of fulfillment. But stray off the path, and the Kakodaimon brings trouble, confusion, and self-betrayal. Sound familiar? It's like having an internal GPS that reroutes you toward wholeness or into a ditch. Now, you might be wondering, isn't a demon just a demon? Not quite. In myth, the daimon is deeply connected to the cosmos, nature, and other people. When it's in harmony, we thrive. When it's not, we unravel. The devil, as we know him, is a patchwork of these ancient spirits blending the wildness of fauns, the revelry of satyrs, and the untamed nature of the god Pan. These aren't just stories. They're blueprints for understanding our own impulses toward pleasure and destruction. So next time you feel a tug-of-war inside, remember, your inner daimon is calling for balance, not repression. The path to eudaimonia is paved with self-awareness and honest reckoning with your shadow. Ever wonder where the word panic comes from? Picture lonely Greek shepherds, suddenly seized by irrational fear believed to be the work of Pan, the wild god of the forests. Fast forward, and we get pandemonium, a word invented by John Milton to describe the capital of hell. Chaos, uproar, total disorder. Here's the technical scoop. Pandemonium literally means all demons. In the world of psychology, this is like a psychic breakdown when repressed conflicts burst out. Our minds become unruly cities of chaos. Now, you might ask yourself, isn't fear meant to protect us? Absolutely. In fear, our senses sharpen. But anxiety, the devil's favorite tool, blurs everything, leaving us paralyzed. It's like your brain's alarm system stuck in overdrive. Let me tell you a story. When we lose touch with what threatens us, when anxiety takes root, our lives can spiral into a personal pandemonium. And it's in that confusion that the devil external or internal thrives. So is the devil just a metaphor for our own chaos? Maybe. But in every wild uproar, in every societal breakdown, you can trace the fingerprints of disintegration, the diabolic force that tears apart what was once whole. Let's talk about goats and sheep. In the Bible, sheep symbolize loyalty. They follow the shepherd, the Son of God. Goats? Stubborn, unruly, used in rituals as scapegoats, literally burdened with the sins of a nation and sent into the wilderness. The term scapegoating has become a technical term in psychology, describing the process of projecting our own flaws onto others. It's like emotional laundering, blaming someone else to clean our own conscience. Now you might protest, I'd never scapegoat anyone. But think, have you ever blamed a coworker for a group failure or assumed the worst of someone you barely knew? That's the shadow at work, those repressed traits like envy or anger bubbling up as accusations. Carl Jung pointed out that Christ's crucifixion between two thieves was a metaphor for scapegoating the innocent suffering for the guilty. And when we project our darkness, we often tie ourselves in knots of hatred and division. So, next time you see blame flying around, ask yourself, am I confronting my own shadow or sending it out into the wild on someone else's back? What's in a name? The devil goes by many. Satan, Lucifer, Beelzebub, the Prince of Darkness. Each title is a mask for the adversary, the accuser, the great deceiver, the ultimate trickster. Here's a linguistic twist. The word devil comes from the Greek diabolos, meaning the one who divides. Diabolic, as in tearing apart, is the opposite of symbolic, which means to bring together. In psychology, this is the fundamental split disintegration versus wholeness. You might wonder, why does division matter so much? Because every time we fragment families, communities, even within ourselves, we give the diabolic power. Rollo May, an existential psychologist, argued that the devil's work is seen in nudity, violence, and above all, division. Let me paint a picture. A society obsessed with spectacle, torn by conflict, and alienated from its own roots. The devil's fingerprints are all over this cultural chaos. And it isn't just out there alienation, it's also an inner experience, a split self. So, next time you feel pulled apart, ask, is the diabolic at work? Or am I moving towards the symbolic towards unity and meaning? Let's talk about deals with the devil, the classic crossroads moment. Legend has it Dr. Faust, a scholar dissatisfied with human knowledge, sold his soul for magical power, youth, and pleasure. This is what's called a Faustian bargainer trade of ultimate value for temporary gain. In technical terms, this is liminality, the threshold where two worlds meet, the physical and the spiritual. The contract with the devil is always tempting because it promises what we crave most, love, power, or forbidden knowledge. You might wonder, would I ever make such a deal? But think about it. How often do we exchange long-term integrity for short-term reward? Every little compromise, every self-betrayal is a miniature Faustian moment. Let me tell you, in Goethe's version, false salvation didn't come from perfection, but from striving, never giving in to idleness, always seeking justice and love. Ironically, it's the devil's temptations that push him towards self-realization. So, when you're standing at your own crossroads, remember, the devil's deal always comes with strings attached, but resistance can turn temptation into transformation. Why do we dream of devils and demons? Swiss psychologist Carl Jung believed the devil is an archetypal universal pattern in the human psyche. In myth and dream, the shadow is our dark brother, trailing us wherever we go. Archetypes, in technical terms, are inherited blueprints for behavior like a psychological operating system. The shadow contains everything we deny: anger, guilt, lust. But here's the catch: if you ignore it, it doesn't go away. It comes back stronger, sometimes as obsession or even neurosis. Now, you might say, isn't it safer to just be good? Jung warns otherwise. Identifying only with goodness leads to ego inflation or projection dumping your darkness onto others. True growth comes from integration, not denial. Let me tell you a story. The violinist Tartini dreamed the devil played a sonata so beautiful he woke up desperate to recreate it but could only capture a shadow of its brilliance. Our creativity, even our genius, thrives at the border between light and dark. So, what's the lesson? We don't conquer our devils by exile. We redeem them by integration, melding shadow and self into a more resilient whole. Let's unravel the names: Lucifer, the light bringer, and Satan, the adversary. Lucifer, in Latin, refers to the morning star Venus, shining brightly before dawn, only to vanish when the sun rises. In Isaiah, the morning star's fall is a thinly veiled allegory for a rebel king later interpreted as the devil's prideful descent. In Christian myth, pride is the original sin-loving oneself above God and others. Lucifer's ambition mirrors our own ego inflation, striving for the highest seat only to be brought low. This is enantiodromia, technical term for the reversal that follows any extreme. You might wonder, if pride is so dangerous, why do we fall for it? Because pride feels like light, like victory, but it's a false dawn, what Jung called a poor imitation of true illumination. Let me tell you, even the devil can appear as an angel of light. The cosmic drama of pride is a warning. The higher you rise on self-importance, the harder the fall. So, when the morning star tempts you to outshine the sun, remember, humility is the only anchor that keeps us from falling into our own abyss. Picture Job, a man blessed with everything, only to have it all taken away. In the biblical drama, Satan isn't just a villain, he's the accuser, permitted by God to test Job's faith. This isn't cartoon evil, but existential doubt woven into the fabric of the divine. The technical term here is theology, struggle to reconcile God's goodness with the reality of suffering. Job's friends blame him, assuming sin is always punished. But Job knows his conscience is clear and demands an answer from God. Now you might ask, why would God allow this? Because suffering isn't always a punishment. Sometimes it's a crucible for transformationa, test of faith, but also a lesson in humility and resilience. God's whirlwind reply isn't a simple solution. Instead, it's a reminder of cosmic complexity of chaos and order, behemoth and leviathan. Ultimately, Job's honesty and struggle are honored, and his fortunes restored. So, when life's trials seem senseless, remember, even in the darkest suffering, the shadow of God is not absence, but a mystery inviting us to deeper wisdom. Let's get personal. Temptation isn't just medieval legend, it's a psychological fact of daily life. The devil's ordinary activity is subtle whispering, just this once, or everyone else is doing it. Temptation starts with deception, what psychologists call cognitive distortion. The promise of pleasure is always front and center, the consequences hidden in shadow. The technical term for the trap is the vicious cycle of vice. You might wonder, how does something small become a prison? Take addiction. It starts with a choice, then becomes compulsion. The alcoholic loses the power to choose. What began as freedom turns into bondage. Let me tell you, the devil isn't interested in your pleasure, he's after your will. The more we numb ourselves, the deeper we sink into despair, isolation, and meaninglessness. But here's the hope. Recognizing the cycle is the first step to breaking it. The gateway to peace is narrow, but every step toward awareness is a victory over the darkness. We've journeyed through myths, trials, and temptations. Now comes the hardest question. How do we become whole? The technical word here is individuation, the process Jung described as integrating all parts of the self, light and dark, into a unique, unified whole. Without integration, we split. The shadow grows, and evil appears as an external enemy leading to persecution, fanaticism, and inner emptiness. The psyche compensates for every extreme, a process known as enantiodromia. Now you might be thinking, isn't it better to just pursue perfection? But that's a recipe for disaster. Even the holiest people have committed atrocities in the name of goodness, blinded by their denial of evil within. Let me tell you, the true path is a paradox. To be whole, we must accept imperfection. Progress, not perfection, is our goal like Faust, striving, falling, and rising again. So as you walk your own path, remember, the devil isn't just an enemy to be banished, but a shadow to be understood. Integration is the work of a lifetime, and the only way to move from division to unity, from darkness to light.